My door. I have to close the door for my animals around here. Hello, everybody. As we have just gone live. Yes, my door is shut, even though my kids are at school, because I've got animals all over the house, and one of them is sitting outside on my door, yelling at me for having the door closed. Either that, or he jumps on my lap, and he's almost 20 pounds, and that's a lot in your lap when you're live on air.
It's like the bowling ball scene in A Christmas Story. Thanks a lot, honey. Yeah, no, we have a very large cat as well. He's not overweight, but he is like nose to tail giant, a huge Maine Coon. So that's my
yeah, those are big cats. This is just a big black cat. I say he's got paws like tennis rackets. It's huge.
Gotta
watch out for that one. Good thing he's laid back.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of big cat encounters. I had one where we came across a bobcat while we were camping in Illinois, and we were fishing, and he came up on the shore and stared at each other for a while, and my goodness. Also, it was a female, and she backed up to take care of business, and my God, stay out of the way. Speaking of taking care of business, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Broncos.
We like to keep it personal around here. Yeah, you know? It's all family.
Yeah, no, it's everybody knows that we're nature lovers in here. I'm excited. Times are coming up. It's almost summertime here, and I know that people blessed enough to live in God's country that is Colorado, most of them enjoy the outdoors as well. But welcome to Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Scott Kennedy. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH, and you can follow Scott Kennedy on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. Also, guys, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share if you are joining us today on YouTube. If you are joining us on Facebook, click those thumbs up. The heart react, we got 3 in here already, but we'll get it rolling. Also, guys, this is a part of Mile High Huddle. You guys can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. And let's get to it. Let's get to this first super chat right now. We're going to talk about probably one of the more intriguing players in the draft right now. It's coming in from our friend of the show, Stephen Baumgartner. For the $9 super there, I'm not even going to give you a hard time about Nebraska, Stephen. I will not say anything. I'll imply it, but I will not say anything. Stephen, if my gut is right, I am thinking Denver is going to draft Parsons at 9. Well, Stephen, thank you very much for the super. We do appreciate the heck out of you. What do you think? What do you think, Scott?
How bad do you need a linebacker?
I don't think the Broncos actually need a linebacker terribly. It's it's a position where this team, they'd be fine this year. They could use an inflection of talent, athleticism, a dynamic playmaker there, especially in the AFC West. But I do think that the room has a solid floor. It's more about getting somebody in that room that can contribute long-term, because both the starting linebackers are free agents after this season.
Okay. I think he's the best defensive player in this draft. Full stop. I think he's a top 5 talent. I think he is 6'3", 250 pounds, 4'4" wrecking ball. He's not just a combine guy. He is productive. He is smart. He is instinctive. He becomes that guy on your defense that you have to scheme around. It's like you don't necessarily have to have a great linebacking core, but by God, you know when you've got one. And Micah Parsons is that guy. At 9, I think from an on the field and talent perspective, I think he is a great pick. Now, I talked with Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com. He's on the 24/7 network, who I've worked with for a long time. And he had nothing but good things to say about Parsons. If you read into the off the field stuff, I kind of glance at headlines and don't necessarily always get into them so much because news gets so sensationalized. But when you start reading into it a little bit, it looks like the script of A Few Good Men. This wasn't just somebody picking on somebody else. This was bullying to a big degree. Now, how much was he involved? Is that overly concerning? Hopefully he learned his lesson because, I don't care how big and bad you are in the NFL. There's several guys that are going to be bigger and badder than you. And if you're a bully, you're going to get your ass stomped. So, I think that it concerns me a little bit, but, or is it something we put behind us? You're a professional now. You better act like one. But he is a 3-down linebacker, and he can cover. He can do everything, and he is a spectacular player. If you draft him, you're excited about what he's going to bring to your defense.
Yeah, and you and I disagree here. I think Micah Parsons is a fantastic talent. No doubt about that. I mean, the athleticism he brings at the size package he brings is incredible. I don't think he is the same refined talent, not totally refined, but he's more raw than Devin White was coming out, 5th overall pick. He's kind of like what Devin White was the year before Devin White came out. So we kind of missed that season when we could have seen what he would have been this year because of the opt-out. But for me, given linebackers are great, but the best defense in the NFL last year running the same scheme as the Broncos are going to be running this year, match quarters under Brandon Staley, had no names at linebacker. Micah Kaiser was their main guy, and they were easily the number 1 defense in football. So while it is good to have linebackers, you don't have to have those guys to have this defense function. I'm more about pass rush and coverage. If you can get guys who can rush the passer and cover on the outside, you can make do with non-pure liabilities at the linebacker position. And then the draft itself is a crapshoot in general. And the fact that Micah Parsons playing a devalued position overall, and with the off-field concerns that he has, I probably wouldn't take the swing on him just because there's already a chance that he busts even without the character stuff. I don't need those chances or the chances of him busting amplified by the character concerns, because some of them are pretty heinous. I'm not talking to him. I'm not talking to the coaches, but there's numerous incidences, and it scares me too much.
Yeah, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, without a doubt. So if you don't have that pressure in the front 4, then you're going to need to bring it from somewhere, and you're going to need to make up for it, and that's an eraser. That's a 250-pound guy that's running sub 4.4. That's an eraser if you lack defensive line. If you have a defensive line, a front 4 that gets pressure on the quarterback makes up for everything.
Yes,
everything. So if you don't have that, you're gonna have to make up for it someplace.
Yeah.
I wanted to say hello to Dakota Marquez. Good morning.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. And I know there's a lot of people, and thanks for dropping a tip. That's again. I'll say it again because we love doing this stuff, but we're able to do this stuff because of things like this. We all have to make a living. We're not. Yes, we enjoy doing it. We love you, but we have to make a living. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dakota. We'll see you tomorrow morning as well. We're going to be here all week. We got Robert Caslow coming in, friend of the show. Robert's always dropping good questions. This is something that's kind of split between Broncos country because everybody, you have linebackers that can come downhill and do some things in the box. Alexander Johnson's been fine there when he hasn't been posting weird stuff on Twitter. How is Parsons' coverage ability? That's something that is really plaguing Broncos country because, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs. The linebackers and tight ends in this division are pretty darn good pass catchers, and they've exposed linebackers a few times over the past few seasons.
He was a running back in high school. So he's got the athletic ability and the knowledge to do whatever you need him to do. Now, one of the guys I like maybe farther back is Hamza Nasruddin, who is a 6'4" safety. I want to drop him on a tight end and forget about him.
Yeah.
That's when I'm looking at cover guys. For me, I'll say it again. I'll say it 100 times. You guys will get sick of hearing me say it. But the best pass defense is a quarterback on his backside. And I would turn Micah Parsons loose, in a nickel package. 3rd and long. I might even have him be a rush end at that point, and put him in a 2-point stance and just say, go get ball. But his coverage is good. He is the complete player as a prospect. There isn't a sure thing, but he is the complete player at linebacker.
Yeah, and in a 3-4 alignment, where would you line him up? Would he be a Will? Would he be a Mike? Would he be that on the line Sam?
Yeah, I'd have him as one of the insides. And then, as soon as you go 4-2-5, which is going to be based in a lot of schemes, a base nickel, then I have him. Then you figure out the 3-4. You can move him all over the place. That's the beauty of Parsons and that's why I'm so high on him is because he's so versatile and he's big. We were talking about Azeez Ojulari. I'm like, Micah Parsons is bigger than this guy, and he's a hell of a lot more productive. What scares you at that point? So,
yeah, no, it's very good. Here we go. We see Jay Boss saying, I seem to think that Nick has forgotten the tight end talent we face in our division multiple times this season. We need Micah Parsons. Well, I haven't forgotten, but tight ends, they can get yards all day. Don't care. If you keep them out of the end zone, which the Broncos have been one of the best red zone defenses in football, I'll take it. And because of that, if you look at the fantasy output actually from the Broncos, which fantasy football, whatever, but because they limit touchdowns so much, while the Broncos give up, I think, 3rd to 5th most yards to tight ends, they give up very few points to tight ends because they just limit the touchdowns. So it's also a deep linebacker class. You don't have to use a round 1 pick on linebacker. There was a really interesting study put out the other day. We talked about it yesterday, where positions that were drafted by round and how likely they were to become a top 10 starter in the position, a top 25 starter in football, and a top 50% starter in football. And one that consistently was found day 2, linebacker, running back, interior offensive line, tight end. You do not need to use premium resources on those positions to find guys. You can find talent day 2, round 4 every year, and those guys can become starters. So while, yes, if you see a special talent, don't pass on special, because difference makers are hard to find. There's at some point where some guy's too talented, the position doesn't matter. But the Broncos are not going to be sunk if they don't spend a round 1 pick on linebacker this year. It's a good linebacker class. You can find guys in round 2, round 3, round 4 and be pretty good this year.
And we might even talk a few that could jump into the first round that maybe weren't thought of as first rounders earlier.
Yes.
As we move on to that.
And we'll get to Mr. Boggins here in a second, because that's actually going to be the theme of our show. But I want to use that to kick off the theme of our show. So Gavin Hull coming in here, skipping practice to watch the draft live on Thursday. God bless you, Gavin. I wish I could do the same, but won't be able to catch on Friday. Oh, man, you had me up and then you had me down. Day 2 of the draft is like the most fun. All the picks coming in fast. It's not the random commercials where guys are flying by like day 3 is. Man, day 3 is can be a slog. It's still fun, but a slog compared to Friday. Thanks for doing this. Fun to watch in the morning.
I'm just hoping they don't turn the draft into an after-school special again. It's like, grab your tissues. I appreciate the human interest stories, but man, this is a fun day. This is a day of hope for everybody involved, for the players, for the coaches, for the fans. This is an exciting day. So,
yeah, and I'm supposed to say hi to Hottie Dingus and Hudson Dingus. So my wife's mother's dog's name is Dingus. Call him Gus. Not the nicest name, but pretty darn funny. So we got Mr. Boggins coming in here, friend of the show, fellow Washingtonian, Pacific Northwesterner. Who's your surprise player to sneak into the first round? Mine is Kellen Mond. Never underestimate the desperation of a team for a franchise quarterback. So, Mr. Boggins, you are leading the witness here today, which I love, because that was actually the topic we were going to get to today to talk about some of our back end of the first round sleepers. And let's just get to yours first. Kellen Mond. I think that Vegas right now has the over-under on quarterbacks selected in the first round at 5.5. And there is some talk between Stanford Davis Mills, quarterback, being a guy that could sneak into the back end of the first round. But I think if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Kellen Mond. There's actually some people who do quarterback stuff. I don't know how familiar you are with JT O'Sullivan, who does the QB stuff on YouTube, but he actually has Kellen Mond rated higher than Mac Jones for his quarterback ranking. So Kellen Mond, he's never been super spectacular, but he takes care of the football. He's got solid tools. Really kind of honestly reminds me a lot of Drew Lock coming out, as far as where he's at, a little bit safer, not as much of the tight window throws, but a guy that has a lot of games in the SEC. I would take a swing on day 2, knowing that it is a scratcher lottery ticket. Like, you don't have good odds to hit for a non-round 1 quarterback, a day 2 quarterback, kind of like Drew Lock. But again, the sample size, the tools, protects the football, decent athleticism. That's one that's worth a day 2 ticket, especially if you already have an entrenched veteran.
Mr. Boggins is right on this, because it's not. I don't think he should go in the first round. I don't think he should go in the second round. But it only takes one. We've said it before. It only takes one. So don't never underestimate the desperation of a team for a franchise quarterback, and that's it. I think it would be a bad pick in the first round. You want an impact player, and I don't know that Kellen Mond's ever going to be that guy in the NFL, anything more than a career backup. Unless he gets drafted that high, then he's going to be a starter, because that's where they're going to put him. So, Mr. Boggins, I think you're right. Don't underestimate. So could he go in the first round? Yeah. Should he? No, he should.
Desperation, man. And especially at the quarterback position. I mean, it's kind of that Paxton Lynch, right? Like, the Broncos needed a quarterback. Well, this guy has some tools. We are desperate. We're going to take a swing, even though they obviously shouldn't have in hindsight. So let's stick on this topic here for a second. We have late first round picks, guys that may surprise. Benjamin Albright just recently tweeted out that the NFL draft in general is way farther off where teams are. The media is way farther off from where teams are than pretty much ever. And there's going to be a lot of guys that slide or fall that people are projecting in the first round right now. And there's going to be a lot of guys who go way earlier that most people in the media have as like a day 2, day 3, maybe even some day 3 talent. So who are your sleepers that you could see be some surprise picks at the end of the first round in this draft cycle?
Well, I kind of wanted to go with by position, and I started at quarterback, so that was fine. And for me, I put anybody then those big the top 5 would be a big reach. So, I don't think there is a quarterback that should go to the back end of the first round. So, that wouldn't be for me. I wouldn't go that direction on quarterback. So, what do you think? You see anybody sneaking in there at quarterback?
I mean, all it takes is one team. I could see somebody convincing themselves on Davis Mills. He throws a pretty football, but that might get somebody. Maybe he's going to impress on the whiteboard. Kellen Mond's another one who I could see. It wouldn't be for me, but man, desperation causes some pretty head-scratching moves from time to time in the NFL draft. So those both, I could definitely see those happening.
Well, and my question is what's the 100-player difference between Mac Jones and Kyle Trask? Their resumes, their CVs look very, very similar on there. So, I could it, maybe, should it? No. No. So, at running back, there's three players I think that are considered first round talents after that. If you look at the running back position, Najee Harris, obviously, Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams could be first rounders, but I think it would be less surprising if only one got taken instead of 2 or 3. And Najee Harris should go in the first round. Could he fall out of the first? Yeah, he could, but I'm not sure that he will. Now, before we get to linebackers, wanted to say in the shop with Willie dropped a super on us, and I don't think I've agreed with Nick so much. No Micah Parsons. Well, it's nice. What's nice about this format is there's context, and you can see how we feel about things, and we can state an opinion, and you guys can react to how it without it getting snippy, like sometimes it does online when it's just in text. So you can see how we feel. It's like I might like a guy. I might not think Kellen Mond should go in the first round, but I don't hate the guy. I think he's a hell of a player. So I appreciate the context in here, and it's nice when you can agree because, in the shop, we really appreciate that because there's gonna be a lot of times when you don't agree, when we don't agree, and that's okay. That's what makes us fun.
Normalize difference of opinions. It's not personal. That's just life. So I agree with you. Running backs, you said 3. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It sounds like the Bills are super interested in Travis Etienne, maybe even trading up for him. It sounds like the Steelers are interested in Najee Harris. And I think Javonte Williams, one of the youngest players in the class, I think had the highest broken tackle rate ever recorded by Pro Football Focus per snap, which is impressive.
That's a good stat.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that dude.
Scouting running backs, I've realized that I said if you take this statement out of context, you can make me sound like a real idiot. So here's your chance. But speed is overrated.
At running back, I agree.
At running back, give me the 230-pound 4'6" guy who can break a tackle, especially in the NFL, over the 205-pound 4'4" guy that gets, can't clear the trash, gets tripped up every time. The guy that can break the tackle, if you're running 4'6" and you can break the first line, by the time anybody can change direction and get you, you're gone. In 50, 60 yards. So, being able to move the chains is so much more important than that extra 0.2 of a second in the 40 times. So that breaking tackle stat that's a all of a sudden I light up like, what? Tackle breaker? Yeah. I like him. So
he runs angry.
I like that.
I kind of see a little bit, this is a little bit of a throwback for you guys, and he won't be this player, but just with how powerful he is and just ticked off when he runs, kind of a throwback to Jamal Lewis. So we'll see if he can be that level of player, but I mean, just angry, a little bit upright.
You're killing me with the Jamal Lewis thing. Real quick story on this. Jamal Lewis, in 1999, the Atlanta Falcons traded their back-end first-round draft pick for a running back, for a tight end named Reggie Kelly. I bet you've never heard of Reggie Kelly.
Mm-mm.
And that pick went to become the 5th overall pick in the next year's draft, where the Baltimore Ravens selected Atlanta native Jamal Lewis.
Oh,
that one hurt. Yeah, that one hurt. Again, going back to yesterday's conversation, you know who made that trade?
Who?
Dan Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Reeves. We were talking about the different stuff, the different talents of being a talent evaluator, being a personnel guy, and being a coach. Dan Reeves is a fantastic football coach.
Yeah.
Crap, talent evaluator and personnel man.
It's always so dangerous to trade future firsts because you have a chance that your team bottoms out and then that pick is so valuable. We've seen it a couple times the last few seasons with the Houston Texans. Don't let your coaches be the personnel guys, folks. I guess the lesson here, but top 4 pick, Denzel Ward. was the Houston Texans pick, ends up going to the Cleveland Browns. This year, number 3 overall, was the Houston Texans, and they end up trading that for even more picks. So trading future firsts, giving away future first is a dangerous game. It's probably a big reason that George Paton is being a stickler with that, because let's say you're the worst team in football next year, but you gave up a 2nd round pick. Okay, you're giving up the 33rd overall pick. That stings. It's a big difference in giving up the 1st overall pick for the next season. So that's why it's a dangerous game to do that. Wide receivers here that could sneak into the my running back. I'm going to go deep sleepers because we're already in this draft process that everybody knows the top 3 running backs. Why can't Michael Carter be in the conversation of 1st round back? Because I don't see him being that much worse than Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. I don't see them being. They're very similar.
I think he's a good utility back, and I think he's safe, and he's a number 2 guy. I don't know that he's a number 1 guy. I like him a lot. The guys I watched at the Senior Bowl all have good size, good builds. They're all 200-plus pounds, shorter, compact guys with good hands. But there was no wows out there, Yeah. And so I like all those guys. There were six running backs there, and all of them I like, 2nd to 4th, somewhere in there where you can get value, and they can be 3rd down guys. They blocked well. They caught the ball well. They were good pros. One of those guys, good at everything. They're all good at everything, not great at anything. And you have to get into that 1st round, especially at this position, you've got to be elite at least one thing. And I didn't see elite out there. I saw good. I saw a lot of good, but no great.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was actually honestly more of a shot at the Kansas City Chiefs taking a good running back, but somebody that looked like a day 2 pick to me, especially when they could have used more cornerback, more edge, and obviously more offensive line. And a friend of the show, Eric Trickle, and I went back and forth on that a lot. He had a crush on Clyde Edwards-Helaire early in the process, so I think he's holding on a little bit of bias there for that pick, but we'll see. And another good one here from Ann, throwing it out here, Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech is another good running back. I would be happy as a clam to get him round 3, round 4.
Senior Bowl guy. He was a Senior Bowl guy. He fit right into that mold I was just describing. Another 215, 220-pound guy, could break some tackles, catch a ball, and block. Good pros. Yep, he was a Senior Bowl guy too. Mm-hmm.
Yep, 100%. So let's move on to wide receiver now. Actually, let's say hello to the chat here real quick. Phil Merrill coming in, best side MHH show out there. Right meow. With the cat talk earlier, that works out. So thank you very much, Phil. And we're going to get to wide receiver here. I'll go first on this one. A surprise pick. I feel like it's somebody that people have been sleeping on, but the dude is just so dynamic, and maybe he actually is more of a running back and a wide receiver. But the position, especially as slots, they're trending away from the technical route kind of guys, the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelman. There's more and more speed being emphasized at the slot position. They're not having to go up against as much press, and with how much drag routes there are, it's not so much a route nuance thing. It is like, can I run faster than the guy in front of me? It's one thing that makes Noah Fant really exciting for this Broncos offense. So I'm going to go with Rondale Moore. He had a lot of hype coming into the season. That his first game against Northwestern, he caught like 2 60-yard touchdowns, and he made Ohio State look foolish, like a video game character. And he tested incredibly. I know he's small. He's 5'7", 181 pounds, but a 4.3 140 with a 1.58 10-yard split, and all the other metrics. He's still extremely young and not even 21 years old yet. And he's dynamic. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands. Is he going to be a running back out of the backfield? Is he going to be a slot receiver? I don't know, but I think there's a good chance Rondale Moore ends up going in the 1st round because he's a playmaker.
And looking at the YouTube chat, I was thinking that someone got the guy that I thought you were going to mention. I was like, he's either going to say Kadarius Toney out of Florida, or he's going to say Amari Rodgers out of Clemson, because those are a couple of the guys that fit that to a T. Amari Rodgers is built like a running back.
Yeah.
He's not the Eric. I don't know how old this audience is. Do y'all remember Eric Metcalf?
Yes.
He's not thin like Eric Metcalf. He's built more like a solid running back. So, I didn't have anybody. I kind of put that as Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Terrence Marshall, Kadarius Toney as guys who could get into that area, who could be there, and so I didn't think of them. So I didn't have anybody beyond that group that's already right there. So, but I was like, one to watch. I don't want to cop out on this completely. Is Nico Collins out of Michigan?
That's a deep sleep. I like it.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 250 pounds to 15 pounds, running the 4.4s, good body control, not always the best production. And that's always, that's the question. Can you take that athleticism and move it forward? Well, if you're going to take a chance, you're going to take a chance on a guy that's 6'4", 215, 220 pounds, running 4.4s with good body
100%.
control. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. And I want to hit Dennis Woods on here. I dropped a super chat because it sounds like, well, Dennis might not be from my neck of the woods, but to me, Travis Henry is University of Tennessee, not necessarily NFL. He was University of Tennessee. And when I started really paying attention to this, Travis Henry was a great example because the opposite of that guy was Musa Smith. If y'all remember Musa Smith, I think he ended up getting drafted first or second round. This guy's a monster. He's 6'1", 220 pounds, running 4.4s, and couldn't break cotton candy if it hit his feet. He'd get several runs just because he's so fast and he was running forward and he ran hard. But if you so much as flicked a shoelace on him, he was going down. So, and then you compare him, going a little old school here, with Rudy Johnson, who played at Auburn, who couldn't run a 4.7 running downhill. His average touchdown run, he had 16 touchdowns, I think, in 2000. His average touchdown run was like 27 yards because everybody just slid right off of him. So that's when I really started paying attention to, like, the speed thing. It's nice if you can get him in space and play West Coast, but the ability to break a tackle, especially when you get to the NFL where everybody has speed, it's much more important. And Travis Henry was a beast. He was a beast.
And we have Ann Rivera coming in with another shout out here. She said Rashad Bateman to Minnesota. I don't think that's much of a deep sleeper. I think Rashad Bateman could go anywhere from 15 to 25. He should be the fourth wide receiver off the board. Another one who's really talented is Elijah Moore. I don't think he's going to get out of the first round as well. I know he's small, but man, that dude competes for the football. And Darrell Washington coming in here. I would love, just selfishly, just to watch some good football, I would love Elijah Moore to go to the Green Bay Packers because, man, I give Rodgers some weapons, man. I want to watch fun vertical attacking football. Yep, Mr. Boggins saying Moore has a good build, sturdy though. I mean, yeah, he's really good. I'm impressed with him. So let's move on to tight ends here real quick. Scott, do you have any? It's not the best tight end class this year. I mean, obviously Kyle Pitts, it's better than last year. Do you have any sleeper tight ends that could go in the first round? I have a couple that maybe first round's a stretch, but some that could go pretty early.
I do, and the one to watch for is Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State.
Yes.
Battled an injury, shoulder injury. Was talking with Mark Brennan again, fightonstake.com, and went and watched that this morning. Watched on my channel, went and rewatched that video, what he had to say about those guys. And I wanted to make sure it was Jason Owe. So how to pronounce his name. But Freiermuth was like a team captain, set the record for touchdowns at tight end at Penn State, who's been playing football for 130 years in 2.5 seasons. His brother was an offensive lineman at a lower division school, so the kid knows how to block. And then, his numbers, he's 6'5", 245 pounds. So, I'd keep an eye on that. That was the guy I thought might be able to sneak in is Freiermuth out of Penn State.
There are not many white tight ends in this class, and that's something that some team could be like, you know what? We want to run more 12 personnel. Let's get that guy. We need him. There's a scarcity. Last year, I don't think there was tight ends that were worth taking in the first 2 rounds, and we saw what happened. Guys flying off the board because teams need those guys. So, and also, just a shout out, if you are a young high school tight end, why not University of Iowa, right? If you want to go make some money in the NFL, how about go to University of Iowa? I don't know what's going on there. So we got Brian Dixon coming in here. Sorry for the typo. Just got the best news. I'm going to have a baby. My queen just told me we are expecting another Bronco fan coming. So thank you. Congratulations to Brian Dixon. Everybody in the chat, give Brian a shout out because, man, that's about as good of a news as you could ever hope for.
Yeah, congrats. That's awesome. It keeps getting better. The times that are tough go fast, and then the times that are great go even faster, and it just keeps getting better. So I've got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and every year is better. It's great, at least until they're teenagers, and then we'll talk again.
No comment. I'm still in that teenager phase. Joining late, good morning from Cody Potter coming in with the $5 super. I don't think we trade up, but odds Broncos stay at 9 and who they take, and trade down odds, who do we take? Excited, MH salute. Really depends on what happens at 3 and 4. If the board falls a certain way, I think the Broncos are going to have a very good chance to move up to 6 or 7 or stay at 9. If they stay at 9, I think odds are they're going to take, if a quarterback doesn't fall, I think odds are they'll take either Penny Sewell or Rashawn Slater. There seems to be some buzz that the offensive linemen may actually slide more than people are expecting. And the cornerbacks are going to go earlier than people are expecting. So maybe flip where you've been seeing Slater and Sewell and put in Surtain and Horn. But again, it's the week of draft talk. it could be complete BS. That's what the temperature is right now.
If Penny Sewell drops to number 9, you're doing backflips. You're absolutely doing backflips. So we did our mock draft yesterday, and I did mine with no trades. Mm-hmm. And with no trades, Trey Lance falls to the Denver Broncos. I had the Broncos taking Trey Lance with no trades. Now, could happen. It could absolutely happen. So we'll see. But I think it's a possibility. And if you get either one of those two guys, and that's what we said from the very beginning, it's a great year to draft in the Big Ten. You should be excited about your pick unless your team does something stupid, which somebody will.
Every year
going to do something stupid.
Just let it be the Raiders.
You should be excited.
Yeah, and my sleeper for the Broncos taking not the Broncos, but a first-round tight end, Tommy Tremble. He's been hidden at least he was not super utilized this past season at Notre Dame because Notre Dame has an absolute freak freshman tight end named Michael Mayers. He'll be a sophomore this year, so look out for him 2023. But man, that dude will be a first-round pick unless something happens off the field or injury-wise. But Tommy Tremble, good athlete, good blocker, gets after it, can function as a Y, can function as an H, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes off the board in the top 50 picks. All it takes is one team to like him then. I mean, that's the thing about these boards where teams have like 12 to 20 players that are first-round grades, and then after that, like 20 to 50, it's jumbled. It's like, did this player hit it off with my coach? Did this player fit my scheme specifically? How are we looking at how our contracts are set up down the line? So a lot of times guys will go earlier than you think there because those players are clustered more than what you see with a actual rank big board. So we'll see.
On to offensive tackles.
Yes, sir. I know who you're going to take.
Well, yeah, and I'll finish with him. And I honestly don't think he'll go into the first round, but he should. So a couple guys that have slid down a little bit, so they might not seem like big surprises. I don't think it's going to surprise anybody if Alex Leatherwood of Alabama goes in the first round, but he's got a high second round, late first round grade right now. But he was okay at Senior Bowl. He wasn't awesome. He was pretty good, but then, it looked like he went and got in shape for pro day because he was 6'5", 312 pounds, sub 5 second 40 with a 34.5-inch vertical. That's explosive. And we know the technique is there. We know that the drive is there. That's a guy who should probably second. I've got Liam Eichenberg, another guy who is out of Notre Dame. Talked with Brian Driscoll about him. And let me read you his CV real quick for the other part of it. So it's 3-year starter at Notre Dame, consensus All-American in 2020, voted the best blocker in the ACC, hasn't given up a sack in 30 games at left tackle, playing for a guy who's had every left tackle taken in the first round, like for the last 15 years. And his pro day numbers were good. So Liam Eichenberg should jump in, should be a guy that is getting strong first round consideration, in my opinion.
Yeah. Are you worried about the sub 33-inch arm length? Because he's a little bit top heavy. Do you think he can stick a tackle?
No, I think his feet are good enough. If you center up a guy, it's not nearly as important if you've got the athleticism to make up for it. So that doesn't concern me.
How many tackles started last year that had sub 33-inch arm length? Can you name them?
I didn't bring out the ruler.
I think it was Braden Smith and Mitchell Schwartz are the only two in the league. So there are guys that do it. It's just they would be outliers, which we're both math people. Outliers scare me a little bit, but if they have good technique and as consistent as Eichenberg was, I'm not as worried about it. Right tackle, and guess what? If he fails at right tackle, you're going to have a really solid guard.
And that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. Is you've got a Pro Bowl type of guard in there. So it's not, again. There's no such thing as can't miss, but we're talking about picks like 28 to 30 here, and if I can get a Pro Bowl guard, I'm pretty happy. Those guys are expensive too.
Yes, they are. And we got Robert Caslow coming in with another tackle question. How about Cosmi? Cosmi's interesting because he's like a good athlete, but his technique is all over the place, right? He's just like, I'm in the way, maybe not always the best with his hands. And I know that Mel Kiper actually has him listed as a guard, which I think is interesting with how tall Cosmi is. I mean, you want to talk about leverage. If you're 6'8", you're going to have a harder time digging out those two gapping defensive tackles in the run game. But what do you think about Cosmi? He's been hyped for a bit. He has some good tools, but maybe needs a little bit of time to work on the technique.
Yeah, I haven't watched him a ton out of Texas, to be honest with you. So I want to take that chance to go to a more of a strength for me on a guy that I have watched when you talk about height. and 6'8". For me, it's Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa. I watched him. He walks up there and they're all big, but you don't realize there's a saying that film doesn't lie. Well, yes, it does, because you need perspective. So when everybody out there is 6'5", and this guy's 3 inches taller than everybody, you think he's 6'5", and everybody else is 6'2". And then you see the measurements, and he's 6'8.5". You're like, whoa, that's probably too tall. But I want you to go and watch go on my channel. It's a good time to plug it on my channel, and go find Spencer Brown highlights. Because one of the things that it just impresses me is his ability his flexibility. If you're watching if he's on the right tackle and you're watching from the left side, he disappears behind the guard. This is 6'8.5". He disappears. He gets so low in his stance that he's just gone. His arms aren't as long as a guy who's 6'9". That's why he's got a 500-pound bench press. His shuttle time was 6'8". There's corners that aren't running 6. I mean, it's not shuttle. His L cone was like 6'8". His shuttle was 4.34. There's defensive backs that aren't that athletic. And then what he did at the Senior Bowl was just wall everybody, and he could drive block. He played with leverage at 6'8.5". It was insane to me. I think this guy, if you're not taking him in the first round, you better hope to God somebody in your division doesn't take him, because he's going to terrorize you for the next 15 years.
Yeah, it's sometimes the athleticism doesn't always translate to the field for him, but he's still pretty raw. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him coming to UNI, and his body transformation that he's had is pretty darn incredible. When guys like that go to UNI, it makes me a little bit bitter, because they should have been Hawkeyes. But
and those are the guys that end up. If he was at Iowa, he'd probably get first round.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd probably be talking about a first round guy instead of Northern Iowa. So Spencer Brown, to me, someone should be taking this guy towards the end of the first. They absolutely should. Maybe I'm wrong. It won't be the first time, won't be the last. But I promise you, the guys that are taken between 25 and 32, there's going to be 4 players in there that don't pan out. So it happens. So,
it does happen.
But like you said, you mentioned, sometimes the measurables don't pan out. But I saw him. I like what I saw first. And then I want to see. It's like, again, you want to take all the data you can and match it with the eye test, and vice versa. So like, okay, I'm looking forward to his pro day, because what I just saw was the best prospect at the Senior Bowl, period.
Wow. Better than Mac Jones?
Well, I mean, yeah,
Different
the quarterbacks don't get to do as much
Yeah.
in that setting to show off as much. But yeah, I mean, like, this was the best prospect there at the Senior Bowl. Now, was I just seeing things? Did he just have a good couple of weeks of practice, good couple of days of practice? Well, then he goes out and puts up numbers that make him look like a power forward.
Yeah.
So I'm very impressed with Spencer Brown.
The name to keep in mind for me with Spencer Brown is Lane Johnson. Athletic freak, right tackle, wide zone, came in pretty raw. Another guy that was a tight end and moved into tackle. And I think he was the 4th or 6th overall pick. So if Spencer Brown had played at Oklahoma, we might be having a different conversation here.
I look at the height and think Nate Soldier. And I went to the Senior Bowl and watched Nate Soldier when he was there coming out of Colorado. Yeah. Spencer Brown was better than him in every category, period. Spencer Brown was farther ahead of Nate Soldier at the same time across the board. So that's what I think, man. I think Spencer Brown should. I don't know that he will, but he should. He should.
And I have one for you that I want you to talk about a little bit, because he's somebody that I feel like is being slept on, and given your work as somebody who does the recruiting kind of stuff. Walker Little came in. He had like spark scores that were record highs, had played very solid football, the obvious athlete with good size at Stanford. Actually is one of the few tackles in this class. A lot of these tackles came in stubby, but he actually has the requisite arm length and body type that you're looking for tackle, but hasn't played meaningful football in like 2 years. So Walker Little, that scares me, but teams, there's a very few amount of people who have the body type that can play tackle in the NFL.
And I didn't see him coming out of high school. That was after I had moved into administration. But I'll tell you, the spark scores, they do their 40 testing and stuff at the Nike camps and combines, similar to how they do at the NFL combine. And it gets confused with FAT. FAT is fully automated testing or fully automated timing, which is purely electronic. the combine, NFL combine, and I read about it again today. Like they're talking about it being, well, this isn't NFL combine time where they do laser testing. If you're doing this to start it, it's hand timed. And that's how they are doing it. If you are a push button start and a laser finish, it's hand timed. Anywhere that the human element is involved, it's a hand time. The NFL combine does hand times. The spark testing is hand timed. So just on those, like, oh, I ran a 4.32 on a laser. Was there a guy doing this? Here,
yeah.
Was there a guy doing this?
Charles Casterly, like
the
one-eyed
down. How come you've got an 11.800 meters, which is FAT, which is fully automated testing? So, and the fact of the matter is you can't do fat at a combine because the players won't come. They just won't come because they go from 4.4 to 4.9.
I don't blame them.
I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So we got Paul I haven't seen Walker nearly as much. James Hudson, the Cincinnati, is right in that group. He was really, really good at the Senior Bowl. Dylan Radins from North Dakota State is right there in that same area. He played 3 different positions at the Senior Bowl. He looked really good too. So there's some. When I start looking at this class of offensive linemen, I think there's a lot of really good offensive linemen in this group, and maybe not as many premier offensive tackles as you'd like, but then again, there's a couple pretty good ones too. But I think there's depth to be had in offensive line on the interior and at the tackle position.
Yeah, and just some other names I want to throw out there since we didn't get to, obviously, you said it's a deep class. Brady Christensen from BYU had a pretty good career. He's already 24 years old, but that matters less for offensive line than other positions. I mean, you're seeing Andrew Whitworth, Trent Williams play pretty far into their career. As long as they don't have any catastrophic injuries, those guys can play well into their mid to late 30s. Another name that's actually, I just watched him for the first time the other day and was pretty darn impressed. Despite the body size, he doesn't look like a guy who moves people off the point of attack, but has length and size. Stone Forsythe for Florida. That game against Alabama was actually pretty darn good. I would be surprised if he snuck into the early portions of the 3rd round. Another one that has some good tape is Deontay Smith from Eastern Carolina. Did you check him out at the Senior Bowl? He was impressive.
I did, and I think he could end up being a guard. If you're a fan of that arm length stuff, he had like the 2nd largest wingspan there. And so he's listed as an offensive tackle. It wouldn't surprise me to see him play guard. And he is another one of those value picks as well.
Yeah.
So there are some highlights of those guys. The guys that were at the Senior Bowl, Spencer Brown, James Hudson, Dante Smith, Dylan Radins, Alex Leatherwood, all those guys are on my YouTube channel right now in the Senior Bowl playlist. So I think there's about 60 guys on there. So watch for yourself. I was looking up Spencer Brown's numbers again today, and one of the comments underneath it was struggled at Senior Bowl practice. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'll show you the video. You guys can go watch it. I only left 2 reps out of there where he got beat out of the entire week. You can watch it. He was a man out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good call. I think we need to get into the interior offensive line now. Robert is giving us a transition here. It's a good interior offensive line class. The Broncos don't really need one early on. They actually are 4 guys deep at the interior offensive line this season, with 3 of them being on rookie contracts. So I'll be honest with you, I've not done as much time on the interior offensive line this season. But one guy who maybe will sneak in, it comes down to the medicals. But man, Landon Dickerson this last year for Alabama was an absolute dog. And I don't know about you. I wasn't doing much interior offensive line until I saw that Alabama Pro Day where he did the cartwheel in the background after tearing his Achilles or ACL, one of the two. I always mix them up.
It was a knee, I think. I'm pretty sure it was a knee. And that's what Christopher Walsh of he's one of y'all's colleagues at Fan Nation doing Alabama, and asked him about it. He was trying to make Mac Jones laugh, I think. So he's doing cartwheels. I'm like, are you still worried about him? And he was a tackle before he came in, and Alabama said, we're going to put you at center. Well, Nick Saban's staff knows a little bit about offensive linemen, so now he ends up being the best, center. So again, he could play any position. So I have Landon Dickerson there, and we had a question earlier. Apologies if I miss it, who it was, but it was like, is anybody that could fall due to injury? Landon Dickerson was one of those guys, that could fall because of injury. And then a guy who's very similar for me is Oklahoma's Creed Humphrey. You know, he's a second round guy, but he's got the ability to play. He played 3 different positions. Again, this was a Senior Bowl guy, so go watch his film. You'll see him at 3 different positions. Excelled at all of them. Very good, measurable, 6'4", 310, 5 flat 40, 4.46 shuttle. The kid can move. And he's, plays with a little bit of a mean streak too. And then one farther down, I don't want to say he's going to sneak into the first, but just let's go sleeper to watch for. David Moore out of Grambling State. At center, 4th, 5th round pick. If you get him, you can say, "Oh, I remember Scott talking about this guy. We should love him." So David Moore, Grambling State, Senior Bowl standout. Keep an eye on him too.
I'll give a sleeper too. The one that caught my eye, Robert Jones, Middle Tennessee. I think he's got a chance. He's got some strong hands. He's a fun one to watch. And just real quick, coming back to Landon Dickerson, is there name a better duo than really good athlete recruit coming in and not maximizing their talent than Florida State? I mean, what the heck is going on with Florida State, man? They 5-star athletes and all of them come out just so raw. I mean, that's one reason I would take a swing on some guys, but like, my goodness, what the heck is going on? Well,
there's a question, and I say it's, Scott, how do you rank these players when they're coming out? And I've said there's an athletic factor and then there's a production factor. And the guys that are ranked the highest are the ones that peg both of them. Now, you've got an athlete who isn't all that productive, or you've got a really productive player who's not all that athletic. And that's where you start sliding down the scale a little bit. Now, the other part of that is which one of these services is ranking offers? It's not quite as bad with Florida State as it used to be, but the Florida State fans used to hate me. They used to hate me because rivals would rank the Florida State offer basically as an automatic 4 or 5 star because War Chant was a $1 million business and Florida State had been really good. But when I got into this business in the early 2000s, Florida State's tailing off. Bobby Bowden's old. It's coming down, and they weren't recruiting very well. And I mentioned before, it's like people don't remember right and wrong. They remember positive and negative. Well, I was saying you guys aren't recruiting very well. You're taking guys that you shouldn't, and the ones that are good have character issues. It's bad. And Florida State slowly started moving down the line, and until 10 years later, I had them with the number 1 class. Guess what? 3 years after that, they won a national championship. So, there's a lot to it. So you got to watch out because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I think a Florida State offer is worth 4 and 5 stars, then they just signed all 4 and 5 star players.
Yeah.
Well, did they? No, you rank the offer, not the player. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, there's a little bit on the recruiting process. Sorry to go in on that too much, but
big issue with Iowa.
I'm ready to move on to defensive ends.
Yes, real quick, let's get to Peter Middleton. Do you see Cushenberry developing this year? Yes, I think we talked about it yesterday. The Broncos have had 2 pretty good centers the last couple of years, guys that have gotten second contracts from other teams in Matt Paradis and Connor McGovern. I always want to say Mitch McGovern. Connor McGovern. Mitch Morris. I keep mixing up my Missouri interior offensive lineman. But those guys both spent years on the practice squad before even tasting the NFL. And Cushenberry was thrown into the fire. So you have to think about that. He's coming into what would have been the first year for those guys. And center is one of the tougher positions to translate from college to the NFL. I think you're going to see him take a big step this year. And maybe he's never, I don't think he's ever going to be an all-pro center. I don't see the movement skills there. But he's a smart guy. He's long. He can sit down and take a nose tackle. So I think Cushenberry will be good this year. And guess what? If he's not, Netane Moody is breathing down his neck, because if Netane Moody's killing it, you're going to see Glasgow then slide into center. So there's going to be competition there, but iron sharpens iron. So let's move on to the interior. Oh, sorry if I go ahead, Bwana, if you did that. There you go. Scott, in a poor defensive line class, could you see any defensive line trades happening during the draft for teams that need one but don't value guys early on, or can you find them late?
It's a good trade down prospect. If you need a defense, and who doesn't need defensive line? I think it's the hardest position to fill, period. Is the defensive line, a standout defensive lineman. So who doesn't need them, but you don't want to take them in the top 10 in this draft. So if you can move down and accumulate draft picks and still get a couple guys that have high upside, the Jason Owehs of the world, who is just, this gets thrown around a lot, the athletic freaks. Jason Oweh is an athletic freak. He's legit. When there's guys that get called freaks, and then there's Jason Oweh, 260 pounds, running sub 4.4 with a 40-inch vertical. Yeah, he's a freak. He's an NBA power forward. that, yeah, you take a guy like that and then maybe get a more productive guy next to him. So if you're trading down, you can use one of those extra picks on one of those defensive linemen for sure. I think that's one of your trade down moves is to get DL in this class.
Yeah, and the interior defensive line is very much a developmental position, right? Where you shouldn't really, if you get something from that guy rookie year, awesome, cool. But really, those are guys, their bodies are going to change so much in the league, the technique. I mean, it's a developmental position, so you need to invest in that position 2 years before it's a need. Otherwise, you're going to be overpaying guys.
The interior line is for grown men. You know, that's your grown men position. Those are the guys that stay in the league for 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years because it's a strength position. And anybody who's gotten older, you know, I'm as strong now as I was when I was 18. I couldn't catch him on a bicycle anymore. You know, I can't run at all like that, but the strength doesn't go away. So the technique and the grappling and all that on the interior line, that's a grown man's position, not a speed and skill and agility position. So yeah, it's tougher to make an impact early on in your career at that spot. That's why those guys get paid so much when you've got them. You know, when you've got an Ndamukong Suh that can come out and be that guy early, they're special. They really are.
Yeah, that's man. I don't know how much you were in the process, but I was head over heels with Jeffrey Simmons at Mississippi State because guy with that length and speed and get off and power. Oh my goodness, those are rare talents, and that's something like people are freaking out about. Ed Oliver as well. You know, he hasn't been as good as they'd hoped for a 9 overall pick, but he was playing like zero tech, firing off at guys at 280 pounds, and now he's transitioning to 3 tech, 4i kind of stuff. It was always going to take 2 to 3 years. So Ed Oliver, going to be fine. In deep sleepers, I don't think there's going to be maybe too many surprises here on the interior defensive line, but I will throw out one. Milton Williams, Louisiana Tech, just because how he tested. I mean, you're a guy, he had like 99th percentile jumps, 99th percentile agility. The one thing that hangs me up on him is he doesn't have great arm length. I think it was like 31.5-inch arm length, which especially in today's NFL, you want some guys with length that can play multiple gaps. But Milton Williams, if you have an attacking front, where you can play him up at 3 tech, because he played a lot of 4i and was supposed to kind of like sit there and then diagnose what's happening in front of him at Louisiana Tech. But dude fires off in a team. It kind of reminded me, honestly, of oh man, I loved him. Who's the really small Atlanta interior defensive lineman who's
Grady
dominant?
Jarrett is one of them.
Grady Jarrett.
Jarrett's a Pro Bowler.
Yes, but he was playing nose tackle at Clemson, which is like, okay, we get it, but that's not what you're going to do in the NFL. I see a little bit of that with him because he's just so explosive going forward. So Milton Williams, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he snuck into the back of the first round because teams need defensive linemen, and Milton Williams can bring pass rush elements.
So I'm going to cheat on this one because this is a guy that's a little bit of a tweener because I didn't have any true interior defensive linemen that I thought it's like Christian Barmore and that's it. You know, this is a really bad defensive tackle class. Yeah. So this is a hybrid guy. It's Carlos Basham out of Wake Forest.
Yes.
He's 275 pounds, so he can do it. He'll play at 285. You can play inside. He played inside at Senior Bowl. So someone to watch has a short shuttle of 4.25. Again, go look at the 2019 NFL Combine and sort by shuttle times. And guys in the 4.2s are probably wide receivers and defensive backs. That's insane. So he can play all across that defensive line depending on distance down situation. So I think Carlos Basham, if you hear his name and you're picking 28 or 29, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good pick. I like that. He's a really productive player who can do a lot of things.
Sometimes I wish he played a little bit more to his style. Sometimes I feel like he wants to be a little bit more finesse than he is. Like, dude, you are long and strong. You should be whipping these ACC tackles. Go whip them.
There's running backs that are like that. You're like, you're 230 pounds. Why are you running like a scat back? Steven Davis was the worst about that. If you remember him, came and played for Washington, Carolina. The other one that was really like that was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry played like really small school ball in Florida and was a 100-meter state champion. No one could catch this guy. He's 6'3", 220 pounds in high school. And the question of him coming out was, is he going to be tough enough? Because that was a big, big concern. And when he went to Alabama, I was like, well, we're going to find out. Because Nick Saban will either make him a man or they'll wash him out and he'll be gone in 12 months. Well, guess what? He's a grown-ass man now. Derrick Henry, he was a scat back. Now he's the real deal. So I agree with you. It's like, guys, be who you are because everybody's going to be fast at this level. Everybody.
Yep, and I just want to give a shout out to my sleeper. My mock will be coming out here, but I did just a little preview here. I did 7-round mock, and I have this guy going to Denver in the 5th round. I'm not sure if he'll be there, but he had a hot and cold motor. But Bobby Brown, not even 21 years old yet, length, super strong. Man, he's one that I would love to have on the bench 1 to 2 years and then take over for Mike Purcell, because the length, the size, the mass, the get off, the strength in his hands, like him a lot. Austin Faliu, I'll be honest with you, I have not watched him, so I cannot speak. If you could give a little bit more information here. He's not in even my top 30 listed interior defensive linemen here. So you're going to have to help me out with that one. Kyrus Tonga, also another one. He's not really a pass rusher, but BYU, boy, is thick and wide. So that's what she said.
Austin's out of Oregon and is right now projected as an undrafted free agent. So not somebody that I was looking at as possibly sneaking into the first round. I look at some of these bigger name guys, specifically a guy like Marvin Wilson. Marvin Wilson played at the Senior Bowl like he was out of Florida State. He played like he was on skates. Everybody pushed him around. It was one of the reasons I thought, this interior line class is really good, is because they dominated the defensive line at Senior Bowl. The offensive linemen did. So, that could be one of two things. It's when you're just playing, scrimmages a lot of times, and this is more for college than you get the preseason games in the NFL and you kind of know what you've got, but it's like, oh, well, they're going to highlight what they want to have highlighted. It's like, oh, the offense really looked good. Yeah. Against our own defense, we wouldn't rush them. We did this. So, sometimes you don't know. My point on this is, were the Senior Bowl offensive linemen that good? Were the defensive linemen that bad, or was it a combination of both? And it was probably a little combination of both.
I can't wait. If the Broncos don't make a move at quarterback and the offense is struggling, it's going to be like, oh man, no fly zone 2.0 returns. Like, is it because the defensive backfield is that good, or is it because the offense is struggling again? So we'll see. That's kind of, it's a zero sum game in those early season practices. We got to run here because we're getting a little long. Edge rusher, my guy who's a somewhat of a deep sleeper, but I liked his tape a lot. Peyton Turner, 6'5", 270. You talked about Carlos Basham earlier. I think Peyton Turner is actually a little longer and a little bit more explosive off the snap. Yes,
I don't think he's 275. He was. I think he's considerably lighter than that, isn't he?
He measured in at his pro day at 270 and with 35-inch arm length.
Nice.
Which is,
it's a very good thing to be heavier than you look when we're talking about football players.
Yeah.
I
see some Carlos Dunlap in his game. Carlos Dunlap, very long, big, powerful edge, and 35-inch arm length for an edge rusher. That dude's not going to have any issues. He's actually going to be longer than most tackles he goes against, which is not the case normally. So I think he's scratching the surface. I'm pretty darn impressed with Turner. He's not the most bendy guy, but that's not the player he is. He's a power edge rusher.
And I had two guys I want you to watch. I don't think they'll get into the first round, but Jordan Smith out of UAB. Is 6'6", 265 pounds, it just oozed potential when he was when he was at Senior Bowl. So keep an eye on him. One of those guys you're going to hear him say, "I want you to count on me. Take a drink every time you hear this. Take a drink." Is his best football is ahead of him. That's a catchphrase for a guy like this that maybe didn't have it all. And then Ellerson Smith, teammates of Spencer Brown at Northern Iowa. He was awesome at Senior Bowl too, just bouncy. And so you go and you look at his numbers and like, okay, well, how big is he? 6'6.5", 262 pounds, and a 41.5-inch vertical leap. Whew. Yeah. That's explosive. In a 10.7 broad jump, 4.69 on the 40 at 265 pounds with a 41-inch vertical leap. Man, draft this guy and just let him go block field goals. Good Lord.
Yeah. I think Daniel Jeremiah compared his metrics, and they lined up almost 1-for-1 with Montez Sweat. So that's pretty impressive. Obviously, a difference between a combine and a pro day measurement, but he's Northern Iowa, man. What are these dudes doing?
Last season he had 21.5-inch, or 21.5-inch. I'm thinking measurements. 21.5-inch tackles for loss. So the production was there. His trajectory went up. So Ellerson Smith, another one of those guys. The guys that are just tuning in for the draft are going to say who, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, can't wait to watch this guy play.
A dude.
And then for me, at safety, I had Richie Grant. I think he's the best safety in this draft. Will he go first round? Probably not. But you got a guy that leads a team in tackles and interceptions. He's just a ball player. He just makes plays. He's one. If your team needs a safety, I'm hoping that if there's a second rounder that might have his name on it, because he's a hell of a football player, just football player. And those are the guys you want at safety. They don't have to be, for you football fans out there, guys that don't run the 4.3s, you put them at center back. And that's where the safeties are. 4.6 is fast enough. You need a 4.49 guy, but 4.6 is fast enough at safety if you can read the game. So Richie Grant, hell of a football player. I think that would be a really good pick. And I wouldn't question that if he was pick 30. I'd be like, oh, you got yourself a player. Next 10 years, you got yourself a player.
Yeah, I do like Richie Grant. The safety class, not the top heavy class, but pretty good depth. And just with because I'm not a general scout, I scout specifically for the Broncos. So like there's different types of safeties. Like safeties people list safeties as one position, but a box safety is so much different from a free safety. What they're going to ask cover 3 versus a cover 4 versus a single high. It's so like specific that it's hard to lump these guys. Like there's like Hifanga and Nasser Al-Din, good safeties. I don't think they fit the Broncos scheme because Vic Fangio just does not use an overhang safety. Historically, he just does not use that guy. The safeties are not playing near the line.
And I think watching the Falcons, what they lost in Keanu O'Neal, that Natural Dean fits into that box safety, cover the tight end scheme perfectly, even rush and make plays. Basically, it's almost like an outside linebacker that has coverage duties every so often. I think Natural Dean fits that. Very different from the skill set that Richie Grant brings, which is a safety. What's he do? He's there to clean up everybody else's messes. He's there to make sure that everything is in front of him. It doesn't get behind him and nothing goes for too long a play. So very, very different. And then at corner, Raiders is going to fall in love with a 4.25 of Eric Stokes. He hasn't been University of Georgia, ran a 4.25 at his pro day. Hasn't been a great defender, but not bad. And he's 6 foot 195 pounds, running 4.3.
Yeah,
someone's going to fall in love with that. And like we said at the top of the show, it only takes one. It only takes one. So I wouldn't be totally shocked. I'll be shocked if he falls below 40, which is damn near first round.
Yeah, and just getting back to my depth safeties, again, because it's specific for the Broncos scheme, I think DeMar Hamlin would be a phenomenal fit for this match quarters, the split field safety. He can come down and play slot as well. You don't need those big body types for the safety in this scheme. You need guys who can come down and play the slot and play too deep. So I think Hamlin is a really good fit, although I would be surprised if he doesn't end up with the Los Angeles Chargers, given Ronaldo Hill was the guy who recruited him to Pitt, and Ronaldo Hill is now the defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. So look out for that one. I also really like Trill Williams. Is he going to play outside corner? Is he going to play nickel? Is he going to play safety? I don't know. Let me get that length and off coverage. I like him a heck of a lot. And for the Broncos specifically, I also really like James Wiggins from Cincinnati. He's had some injuries, maybe not the best twitch or agility side to side, but dude's pretty explosive. If the injuries are fine, and here we go. Good safeties here, BX Bronco Jedi. Those are some names I'm looking for as well. Cornerback, specifically for the Broncos, he's not going to fit every scheme, but Eric Molden, I know he didn't test the best, but man, I see a little bit of a baby Buda Baker out there who can play some slot and do some too deep safety work as well. And not for the Broncos specifically, but I think somebody is going to take a shot on Ifeatu Melifonwu. I mean, 6'3", 205 pounds, 4.45 40, cover 3 scheme. He seems like a good fit. And it's not like his brother, Obi Melifonwu, where he's like, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? We don't know where to put him. Ifeatu Melifonwu is a much easier projection scheme-wise, position-wise. I think somebody could take a shot on him late round 1 because there's no such thing as having enough corners.
And one more to watch is Ambry Thomas, Sam Webb, TheMichiganInsider.com on the 24/7 network says this is going to be the best guy to come out of Michigan's class. When you go back and look back at Michigan 2021 draft, Ambry Thomas is going to be the guy. Sam's pretty good at what he does. So keep an eye on him, especially if he's going 3rd or 4th round.
And just some other names I wanted to toss out real quick, deep sleepers, but guys that caught my eye that I was dang impressed with. Zach McPherson from Texas Tech, running a 3.35 there out in Lubbock, whatever you pronounce it. I'm not from Texas. Lubbock. All right. Out in the middle of Texas. The ball production that he had in the no defense allowed Big 12 was pretty darn impressive. So I like McPherson a lot. He's surprising to me. Trey Brown, I don't know how much you saw from Trey Brown, but oh my goodness, if you want somebody out there to bring energy, I don't care if he's not going to be a starter for you. He's going to get out there. He'll go up against Julio Jones, and he is going to tell that guy to pound rocks. He does not care. He will press anybody. I don't know. He's a spark plug, man. I I don't know where he's going to go. If you need a slot that can press some, Trey Brown is going to get after it. He is so much fun. I love him. I don't know if he's the best scheme fit for the Broncos. I love him. Speaking of scheme fits, though, my late round sleeper scheme fit, which we had the Broncos roundtable mock draft the other day, and we got this guy in the 7th. I don't think he'll be there in the 7th, but Shamar Jean-Charles from Appalachian State, some of the best ball production in football over the last 2 years, can play off coverage. He's a little bit small. He's not going to be for every scheme. I don't think you want him to press, but man, I think he would be phenomenal in Denver. And if you miss out on a cornerback in day 2, round 5, round 6, if you can get Shamar Jean-Charles, I think you have a chance to actually get a starting caliber cornerback a few years down the road, which finding a cornerback day 3 that can be a starter for you, that they're worth their weight in gold.
Senior Bowl guys, corners that I thought had some of the best weeks are guys that are projected to go later. Thomas Graham, another Oregon guy, he was really good. Keith Taylor out of Washington, another Washington guy he was safety size. I think he was 210, 215. I'd have to look it back up, but he was really big. So how does he fit that scheme? The press and release cover 2? Yeah, absolutely. And then I had one more, and Trey Brown was my other one. I thought he probably had the best corner of the defensive backs at Senior Bowl. He had the best week of the corners. So those are all guys that are looking, 4 to 6 that were really good, should be really good value picks for you.
Yeah. And we got Mr. Boggins coming in here real quick. We got to get flying now. Who goes first, Malcolm Kone or Wyatt Huber? I don't know Malcolm Conant's, but Wyatt Huber had, I think, 31-inch arms on the length of the Senior Bowl, and there have only been like 3 edge rushers ever at the NFL Combine measured with that length. So, man, talk about an outlier. They don't even measure those guys, let alone get them drafted. So he scares me a little bit. You can get some special teams value from him, but with arms that short, he's just going to get engulfed by offensive linemen.
Yeah, he was really good there. But it says 77-inch wingspan, and I've got on my spreadsheet, I've got 25 players. Including linebackers, and no one else is under 80.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. It's like I don't know if you ever saw Meet the Robinsons. There's like
but it's
a Disney
not really
movie
that weird.
T-Rex.
I mean, like what's normal is your wingspan is about your height. It's the fact that there's actually some sort of condition where it's accelerated like that, and it's like 99% of NBA players have it.
Yeah.
I'm watching these guys, and I used to think I had long arms. I'm getting back from this combine, watching these guys that are 6'2" with 7-foot wingspans. I'm like, wait a minute, how long is mine? I'm like, yeah, it's 73. I'm 6'1". So it's for this level, yes, and for what it takes, it's pretty crazy. But 77 inches is what, 6'5"?
Yeah.
For a guy who's 6'3", that's not out of the question. That's fairly normal, just not for NFL football players.
Yeah, fun fact. My family has not a weird genetic thing, but all the men in our family have really long arms until they hit puberty, and then they kind of stretch out. And I'm still on my elementary school's wall for the sit and reach record. Not because I was flexible, but because I could itch my knees without bending over.
Because I was tying my shoes without bending my back.
Yes, exactly. I was really good at basketball until everybody else hit their growth spurt, because I could just reach above everybody and get all the garbage points. Linebacker, we got to get to that real quick, and then we got to get out of here. A lot of good comments in here. Great hoodie, Nick. Go Hawks. I got a rep. I got a rep. It's that season. There's Iowa, no first round pick this year. They ruined their streak. I was really excited. And Chelsea too. I'm going to have to bust out my Chelsea jerseys sometime. We'll have to rock those both together. Maybe if the Broncos get a quarterback Thursday night, I will be rocking. I'll wear a Chelsea jersey for you, Scott, just because I will be exuberant. And that also, it'll be a patronage to you, because the Broncos don't get a quarterback at 9 or wherever if the Falcons take a quarterback. So it's saying thank you to the Falcons for not taking a quarterback. Linebackers.
It is Champions League day, so I won't overdo it like this every day. But it is Champions League semifinal day, Real Madrid, and for those of you who don't know anything about this, the Champions League is one of the coolest competitions in the world, and this is down to the last 4. So go Chelsea.
Go Chelsea FC. Blue is the color, right? Linebackers here. These guys that could sneak into the back in the first round. I am really not sure what to think of Baron Browning. I like the athlete. I think he's got drop potential. Sure. He played a lot of different spots at Ohio State, and he got better every year. I'm not sure if he is the best processor, but apparently he interviews extremely well. Is he going to be an edge rusher? Is he going to be like a 3-4 Sam? Can he do some will work? I'm not sure, but he's one that he has size. He can run. I thought he was actually pretty good in the one-on-ones for his size at the Senior Bowl. So I would take a shot on him. I think he maybe not back in the first round, although he is an athlete. But I like Baron Browning a lot, and if the Broncos could get him at 71, I would be ecstatic.
I like how physical he is. You know, he's going to take on a lead blocker and buckle his knees, and I saw him do it at the Senior Bowl. And I don't think this is more of a. I haven't updated my list because 2 months ago, Davis out of Kentucky was not considered a first rounder. Now I think he's almost a lock. Yep. 6'3", 235, running sub 4.4 with production, 102 tackles, 6 sacks. So he has worked his way up where he should definitely go in the first round, and that won't be a surprise. But that was who I put down was Davis out of Kentucky.
Speaking of sacks, Peter Middleton coming in here with too early for Cox. We got to get the immature jokes in here for you. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, John, for the hand gestures there. Cox, I like Jabril Cox. He's a little bit older for the linebacker position. He's already 23 years old. Obviously a transfer from North Dakota State. I think he's very fluid in coverage. I just don't think he is super twitched up, right? Like sometimes I feel like he'll flip his hips to go in one direction, and it's like the cartoon where like the legs are moving really fast, but he's not going anywhere. He's fine. I just don't think he's super duper explosive, and I don't really want to I wouldn't take him like in the top 50 because of the position and he's not as explosive as I'm looking for.
Yeah, good football player, good value where you can get him, but not somebody I think you're spending a premium pick on in the first round. 6'3", 235, and he's good in coverage. He's really good in coverage, and part of it is I think he wore 7 at the Senior Bowl. That makes you look like a defensive back anyway. You gotta scare him with those numbers.
He's fluid. He's fluid. And I want to ask you, before we get on out of here, and we got Reese Scott saying PSG all the way. So got to get that football talk in here for you guys.
Nobody roots for them. Nobody. The only reason anybody started rooting for them is because of Neymar and Mbappe. Nobody is a PSG fan.
Yeah, not for me. None of the French teams for me. I'll be completely honest with you. If I'm cheering for anybody, Chelsea, Juventus, or Dortmund, those would be the squads. PFF has Jamin Davis going around 1-1-4. Pro Football Focus, they stick to their board. They really try not to have outside influence. Good for them. That's going to happen sometimes. I think it's because he's so raw. And I think it's Mike Renner's brought up a point where Jamin Davis, freak athlete, like freak of freaks. I think he had the highest vertical jump since Boss Bailey. I talk about what an absolute freakazoid. Why didn't he play really or start until his redshirt junior year? That's a fair question because it's not like it's Alabama or Ohio State where they're just like crazy talent. Like Jamin Davis, given his athletic profile, probably should have been playing. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, and coach screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, very possibly.
And it could be it could be Kentucky's not going to be under the microscope. Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State could be disciplined for all we know. I'm just throwing that out there. I have no idea. But what did he weigh coming in? Who was in front of him? How did he do in practice? There's so many factors in there. When we talked about Kyle Pitts, you're like, oh, we look at that huge jump from this year to this year. I'm like, and someone's like, okay, well, we'll just draw a straight line. I'm like, okay. The other thought of that is it could go right back down this way. Yep. Where's the norm in there? So you don't know, and that's why you've got to do much more due diligence. I'm not about to spend millions of dollars. If I'm dropping millions of dollars, I'm dropping $10,000 on a private investigator to go down to Kentucky and find out everything there is about this guy. That's the kind of stuff that background checks, talking with coaches, high school guys, all this stuff when you're doing it, you can do all of that and still miss on half your first round draft picks. Or if you're some franchises, 3/4 of them.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like being a weatherman, right? Where you're going to get wrong a fair amount, but if you can even have just the slightest competitive advantage where you're hitting 60% of your picks instead of 50, that can make or break being a perennial playoff team or being fired. So, we'll see there. And I want to get to this one. I know we're running late, but it's draft week, guys. We'll enjoy it. Mr. Boggins coming in one last one. And this is one that really has me scratching my heads. And Chris Sims, I know he gets a lot of credit for his 2018 quarterback rankings. I think he's kind of living very highly off of that, considering he was not as high on like Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, and those guys didn't work out as well. He did have Mitchell Trubisky over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, but let's not remember that. Chris Sims has Justin Fields falling all the way to the 32nd overall pick and going to the Tampa Bay Tom Brady's. What are your thoughts here? Because, man, that is something else.
Part of it is like, Chris, you're on NBC. You don't have to put up crap to get attention. But the thing is, one of the phrases I used to have was, "Let me be wrong before you tell me I'm wrong." I'd get crap for, but I'm talking about 2000 kids. Well, so and so has this guy, and Scott just doesn't want to admit he's wrong. I'm like, well, let me be wrong first, okay? So before I'm going to judge Chris Sims, because I'm going to come out here and say that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and then he falls to 40. Well, maybe it wasn't so stupid, So personally, I think that would be crazy, but maybe there's some information. Maybe more people are scared about this epilepsy thing than we know. I don't think so. It wouldn't bother me that much. I've seen him play. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll be shocked if it does. I think the chances of it happening are almost nothing, but not nothing. So I think I think the take is out there, but I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. He's predicting the future. He might be right. I don't think he's going to be.
Do you think that some of this has to do with Kyle Shanahan and Chris Sims and Kyle Shanahan have matching tattoos? They are bros going way back. I mean, that's not a joke. They were working together for a while.
That's what Grant Cohn said as well, who covers all49ers.com, was about those guys. So, he can end up being right on Mac Jones. That doesn't mean anything. Kyle Shanahan's not going to affect how the Carolina Panthers and Denver Broncos are going to pick at 8 and 9.
Yeah.
That's not going to have anything to do with it, except for the fact that they can't take somebody that he took. That's the only way he's going to have any effect on their draft. So for me, Justin Fields, Brett C, let's highlight that one. Justin Fields is the next Dwayne Haskins from Brett C. Dwayne Haskins couldn't throw like Fields, couldn't run like Fields, and I don't think he was as big as Fields. There is almost – if I was going to compare it to Ohio State quarterback, it'd be the guy that won the Heisman Trophy who showed up to a camp I was running stoned out of his gourd, and I've already forgotten his name. That's how insignificant he was after the next level. Dwayne Haskins was closer to that guy. Justin Fields is legit. He is a legit thrower, big time, elite arm talent that, he could end up being the next Dwayne Haskins. Again, I'm not going to tell you I'm wrong, but you're wrong, but from a prospect standpoint, it's night and day. It's not even close.
I think the name you were thinking of was Troy Smith.
Sounds right.
Okay.
I just remember him coming out and talking to our kids in Baltimore, so that might be right. In Baltimore, just blasted.
Yeah.
Just blasted. Y'all don't play no football. We play football in Ohio. Y'all don't play no football. Oh, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
I do not get that vibe from Justin Fields. I mean, there wouldn't have been Big Ten football this year without Justin Fields, and he could have just as easily sat out and coasted into the number 2 overall pick. But he played some bad games against Indiana Northwestern. It's weird because Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson have been this consensus 1 and 2 now for a bit that I feel like we've just moved on as media. We're not scrutinizing them anymore or picking them apart because we know they're going 1 and 2. And then it's like this Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones overload, because they're the guys who could go a number of places. So the media is just scrutinizing the heck out of them. Maybe there's something racial to that too. I don't know. But it's pretty crazy. I don't really get it.
Well, for me, the two guys that I would compare these two are different positions though. And for the same reason is AJ Green and Julio Jones. AJ Green and Julio Jones were considered the 2 best wide receivers since they were 15 years old. Mm-hmm. And they lived up to it. They lived up to it. I mean, we can still have this argument from 2007, 14 years later, who's a better guy? I'm going to go with Julio, but part of that might be just because he had Matt Ryan, who was a considerably better quarterback. But that's the argument that we've been having about Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence since they were sophomores in high school, and they've lived up to that. So, no, he's not Dwayne Haskins. It's not even close from a tools and talent standpoint.
And not to disparage any of our listeners, because we love you all, but I don't think there's a lazier narrative out there than comparing a guy from one school position to a next. Did the next guy who came from Texas Tech end up being Patrick Mahomes? No. Quarterbacks are their own every single time. Where they went to school, don't care. They're individual prospects. So, guys, that's going to do it for us today. We've been here for almost an hour and a half. It's draft season. We appreciate the heck out of you. So this has been Broncos for breakfast. I just finished my coffee, so that means it is time to get out of here. And also, Scott's probably got some stuff to do before the soccer game kicks off here. Oh, still football. Excuse me, with the U sound. Guys, you can find us on Twitter or at Mile High Huddle. Obviously, we are an affiliate of Mile High Huddle. Go check it out. Chad should be getting my 7-round mock draft published sometime today. I called him. He's like, Chad, I just sent you an article. He's like, oh no, how long was it? 3,000 words. Oh my God, Nick, I am going to kill you. So, yep, that's God bless you, Chad. It was 7 rounds though, and I only did 1 this year. So, it is what it is. You can find us on Twitter. Oh yeah, and go to Facebook as well. So John's leading me the way in the background here. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Become a supporter. Go engage in the chats there. You'll see me in there. It's become very much a quarterback-driven conversation there, the Drew Lock supporters versus the quarterback and the draft supporters, but we'll be beyond that soon, and we'll see what happens. So come join in. It'll be a good time once the quarterback stuff is settled. Find us on Twitter at Nick Kendell MHH, and also find Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy, SCOUT, for those listening. And guys, also make sure you check out Scott's YouTube page. He's dropping a lot of good content there. The draft is just a little bit away. I saw a lot of people saying like, man, you guys are dropping so much knowledge today. Well, if you guys want to get some more knowledge, especially as it pertains to the draft, go to Scott's YouTube page right now and subscribe. YouTube.com/C/Scout or Scott Kennedy, excuse me, not Scout. And I'll have John in the background drop the link in the chat as well. So that way you guys can click on that and get subscribed, because again, Scott is dropping golden nuggets every single day for leading up to the NFL draft. Yeah, guys, we will see you tomorrow. I mean, we appreciate the heck out of you. We'll be back. Today was 7:30 because I had a work obligation, or excuse me, 8:30 because I'm in Pacific time. You guys are mostly Mountain time, God's time. And we'll see you tomorrow at 8 Mountain time for a Wednesday show. And not sure exactly what we will talk about yet. Maybe we'll talk about some of the most interesting fits, trade scenarios. I don't know. We'll sit on it a little bit, but you guys know, you guys lead the conversation. You guys dictate it with the chat. We appreciate everybody that dropped supers today or just left a comment at all or joined us. Have a good one. Thank you everybody for saying the great show. Excellent pod as always. We will see you tomorrow. God bless. Stay safe. And man, 2 days away. 2 days away. Happy draft season, folks.